All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to InDesign, Create a Book. My name is Caitlin Tips, and I am a public services librarian with Plano Public Library, and I will be presenting today's program. I am assisted today by Jess and Emma, who will be monitoring the chat and assisting with any tech support needs for today's program. Please say hi, Jess, Emma.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. So before we begin, um, I need to let you know about some ground rules that we've set up for today's program. You will be muted during this class and we have your video blocked. You will only ever see the instructor screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer or in case you want to switch the view for whatever reason, your comfort on your device. You are welcome to ask questions or request that the instructor repeat information at any time during today's program. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. Click on that to open the chat window. Chat is set to be seen by library staff only. If you prefer, you may also use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Please note that any inappropriate questions or comments will cause your immediate removal from today's class. For all questions, we may answer you directly in the chat or Q&A box. Hold the question until the break or the end of the class, or ask the question at the time if it is pressing. On our website, additional resources such as databases that supplement today's programs can be found. Today, we will be using the instructor's screen to demonstrate and may share additional resources in the chat. A recording of today's program will be available in a few days, so if you'd like to rewatch today's program and then practice with the recording later, that is an option. So with all of that out of the way, now let's get started. All right, so real quick, got one more thing. I do have to share that the instructors today are not graphic design experts or publishing experts. We are, in fact, librarians. So the purpose of today's class is to provide a tutorial for how to utilize the Adobe InDesign software for various projects, specifically today creating books, and to cover the basics of the InDesign software for this purpose. This class will not guarantee that you are going to be a publishing expert or an expert in creating books. But it is intended to get you started, give you more tools in your arsenal to begin the process of designing and creating your book. And of course, the information in this program was accurate as of the time of this program. For graphic design expertise, please utilize our LinkedIn library access or Udemy access resource that is free with a Plano Public Library card. All right, so with that fully out of the way, what are we talking about today? So our agenda includes a little bit of an overview of book publishing and formatting background for books. This is important because without this background information, you really don't know where you're headed with your book design. You have to know the standards so that you're creating your book to meet those standards and needs. After we kind of talk about that for a little bit, we're going to talk about InDesign, some of the key features in the software, and then we're going to hop into the software for the demo. Today, we're going to focus on setting up our project. We're going to talk a lot about parent pages and text styles. We're going to create some drop caps. We're going to talk about book files, and I'm not going to leave you hanging on this project without learning also how to save and export your project. Okay, so let's talk about book publishing real quick. So in general, there's three main paths to book publication. There's the traditional path, which is where an author sells a book to a publisher with help from a literary agent. This is where you're first getting your book to an agent, getting an agent to buy into your book to sell it to a publishing house. So think Penguin, HarperCollins, all the big names that you see on the back of books when you go to a bookstore. Once you take that step, the author's involvement becomes more limited aside from editing and some very minute creative decisions. The publisher, when they buy the book, tends to take ownership of more of that side of the book publishing needs. So you may not have final say on your title cover, your font choices, or any marketing push for your book. Now, the self-independent publishing route is where an author sells the book directly to the consumer, and they retain that creative control on book design and marketing, etc. And they typically utilize platforms such as the Kindle Direct Publishing feature, an author direct website, or other platforms like Kobo or something. There's also a hybrid option where an author can make use of both models, but that does vary in cost to the author and publisher depending on the packaging deal between them. So today we're going to focus more so on that self-independent publishing because that does put the formatting of your book more so on the author to put together and less so when you go the traditional route. So when you're formatting your book, what do you have to know? Well, it completely depends on the type of book you're trying to publish, the genre of the book you're trying to publish and create. It also depends on whether you're creating a book solely for print or digital publication, or if you're going to do both. Because all of this does include variations in size. So the physical size of the book that you're creating, or the digital size that you need to create for your book. It also includes all your font needs, your margins, the title pages, publication information, chapter headings, and more. Like this is not an exhaustive list by far on this page here. It includes a lot of minute details that you have to consider before you jump in and decide, oh, I'm going to format my book exactly this way. Now, reasons for that, let's focus first on sizes. So print format, some standard sizes. You can see right here, I've just broken it down into 3 categories. So we have a general fiction, nonfiction, and children's. And there's actually more categories even beyond this, because within fiction, you've got sci-fi, you've got romance novels, you've got YA fiction, all of which are sized very differently. Same goes for nonfiction and children's, which tend to have much different sizes. You can tell right here, 7.5 by 7.5, that's a square, and you don't typically find that in a adult fiction category. So know what your book is about, know what genre it fits in, and format it accordingly. Because if you create a children's book sized to an adult fiction standard, it won't go over as well, won't be as easy to promote. So make sure you do your research on that front. Now, digital format, if you know where you're going to do your publishing for a digital format, if you're going to go through Amazon for Kindle publication, if you're going to do a general EPUB, or if you're going to go through Kobo or something, make sure that you look up the standards for what they need to submit your book. These were current numbers I found, but in general, if you're only going to do a digital publication, start with formatting your book in a standard letter size. You can always resize the layout once you're done with the formatting. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the class, but there is a really cool feature in InDesign called Liquid Layout, which will allow you to create multiple size layouts for your book without having to completely redo or re-upload your content each and every single time. And before we jump into InDesign, I do briefly want to talk about ISBN or ASIN. What are they and do you need them? So an ISBN is the International Standard Book Number. It's typically 10 or 13 numeric digits. When you open a book, typically you can find it at the front with other publication information. If it's a children's book, you might actually find it in the very back of a book. Same with nonfiction, it could be in the front or back of the book. Now, ASIN, ASIN, that's Amazon Standard Identification Number. That's typically 10 alphanumeric digits. And what these are unique book identifiers. So they are assigning a product number for publication. Now, the ISBN, that's international. Um, the nice thing about it is if you're going the self-publishing route, it helps you appear more official. Self-publishing, it used to be that getting your book in a bookstore seemed impossible. That is no longer the case. There are some bookstores out there now that are perfectly happy and willing to work with an author to self-publish their books. And a big part of that is doing things the way a big publishing house would, which is getting an ISBN. Now, the con with that is that it does have a cost associated. Um, Typically, you can get this through an entity called Bowkers, and you can buy it as a single ISBN, or you can buy it in bulk if you know that you're writing a series or you've got multiple books. Um, Now, the ASIN, the Amazon standard, the pro is it doesn't require an ISBN. So if you're only looking to do digital publication right now, it's not required at the start for that. Now, the con is if you're looking to do any kind of printing and later on with your book. So if you're trying to use Amazon to maybe print books down the line, you will still need an ISBN at that time for that outside Amazon access. So the moral of the story here is all roads lead to an ISBN, but do your research and make sure that the timing of getting that entity works for you and that you include it in your book formatting when you do get one. So with that out of the way, that kind of has us jump into InDesign. Before I talk about InDesign, were there any questions about anything related to book publishing or some background research needs that you might want to think about before you jump into formatting? I'm going to take that as a no, but feel free to post any questions or thoughts in the chat. Happy to answer anything anytime. All right, so what is Adobe InDesign? It is still a standard publishing application for print and digital media, and it really is the gold standard, oh my goodness, talking. It is the gold standard for doing any kind of page formatting need. It's great for creating books. It's great for creating flyers, interactive PDFs. If you've ever interacted with an online magazine and had that page flip feature, it was probably made in InDesign. So that's what we're talking about today. Now, real quick before we hop into the software, I want to talk book files because if you do any kind of research into creating a book in InDesign, the first thing that pops up is using book files. So they're a really big feature of InDesign, but it's a little misleading if you're just getting started. So a book file in InDesign, what it is a collection of documents, so a collection of project files that can share similar styles, swatches, and parent pages. Um, they're a really, really cool feature, but just like how you can't walk to Mordor, you cannot simply start and walk to a book file. You actually have to create project files first and then create a book file from those files. So they're great because once you have a collection of your files, you can link them all together and have the numbers be sequential, automated, and have everything just flow beautifully. But you have to first have a document complete with all the parent pages, the style sources, everything kind of finished before you add it to the book file, because that becomes the style source. And this is what makes sure that all of those other files that you attach in the book file are synchronized. It may not make sense right now, um, but they're a really cool feature of book creation and InDesign. So I wanted to go ahead and address that feature first and hop right into it, um, hop into our demonstration. So we're going to focus on using three key tools. So the direct selection tool, which is black arrow. You may hear me say black arrow, switch back to black arrow quite a bit. And then we have our type tool and our frame tool. There are a bunch of other tools in InDesign, and they're great, but we're not really going to focus on using those other tools today. So, okay, I'm just going to switch to InDesign real quick.
While you're doing that, I put the handout for today's class in the chat, so everyone has access to a PDF with definitions and steps for some of the project parts we're going through today.
Thank you so much. Hopefully everyone can see InDesign. This is our start screen. So anytime you're trying to create a new project, there's a few ways you can do that. You can select new file right here. You can also go to File, New, and select Document. This is also where you can see Book for that book file. It's very tempting to, when you're creating a book, be like, oh, look, there's a format directly for book, but it's misleading because all that will happen, I'm going to click it just so you can see what will happen. All that will happen is you get a file manager window that wants you to select that InDesign file. Did the new book file manager window pop up for y'all?
Yes, we
Emma,
can see it.
Jess? Okay, perfect. It doesn't always show up, so I wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, and you can see here it shows up as save as file name book one. So that's why you do not start with this, because you have nothing to pull from. Okay, so we are actually going to click new file. And the first thing we're going to do is change over here on the right units to inches, because I personally do not work well in picas or points. Next thing we're going to do is actually give our book a name. So we're going to do book class example. And because I'm just going to show a bunch of features, we're not going to be too concerned with the measurements today. Those are really easy to look up depending on the type of book you're wanting to format. So we're going to leave it letter size. Next thing I want to note is this checkbox here for facing pages. Now, facing pages, this is what this is basically InDesign saying, oh, they need to be bound together. There's going to be a spine. If you don't have that selected, we're going to click this preview button down here real quick. This is a great way to make sure that the settings on your page are correct. By the way, you can see a preview version of what your margins would look like, any other features added. If we don't, the sad thing about this, oh, let's see here. We've got the pages panel open. Perfect. So facing pages is turned off. So in our pages panel, we just have sequential pages listed. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. If we turn that on, you can see that preview changes to have that linked to page spread. So for a book, that is the format that you want because they are going to be bound together. Um, if you're doing digital, it doesn't matter as much. Um, I would say this is still a good visual tool because it has you thinking of your book as a book. Um, but just a good thing to keep in mind. The other thing that I will mention is if you scroll down, you have some more advanced features underneath your margins. So for a print book, uh, just note you'll want to unclick this chain link here because very rarely are all four sides of your document margins going to be the same. Typically, you're going to have um, more space at the top and bottom for page numbers or chapter headings or anything else you might want. And you will have maybe a thinner margin on the outside of your page that's going to be closer to the edge, like when you open the book. And you're going to have maybe a greater margin in the center because when you are binding a book, it will actually cut in a little bit to do that gluing and sewing. So you actually don't have as much space on the page as you think you will. So that's a common error with self-publishing is authors won't remember to leave enough page on the spine on that side of their margin. It's called a gutter. They won't leave enough gutter room for folks to um, be able to turn the page and still read all the words. Um, with EPUB, with e-publishing, that's not as much of an issue, but it's still something to keep in mind. Now, below that, you've got bleed and slug. Bleed actually is really useful for your cover design. So if you're going to have your title page and you're going to have a graphic that goes all the way to the edge, like with really popular fantasy novels, for instance, the way that you get that graphic all the way to the edge is by having a bleed. So we're going to focus more so on the meat of your book today, the interior chapter pages and everything. But just so you have this knowledge as well, what that would look like is when you create that and add it to your pages, you can see here on the preview, we now have this red exterior box all the way around our InDesign page. That is our bleed, and that's actually communicating to your printer that any graphic that you add, you're going to actually put it off the page into that red edge. So when they do the printing, they will actually cut it down to your page size. And that's how you get that image to the edge of your page. Because printers naturally, when they do printing, they can't print to the edge of a page. They just don't have that finite capability. And slug is actually a generated space where you include instructions to your printer. So again, really nice for your cover page design, just because you can include instructions to your printer about embossing or debossing or metallic effects. You can use what are called spot colors and say this red color is actually going to be a red foil and give them that instruction. But that's just important as well to reach out to your printer and make sure that you're following their standards for any kind of cover design, special printing effects, things like that. So that's a little overview of page setup. Again, this is our class example. So we're going to stick to that 8.5 by 11, and we're going to go ahead and stick to our standard margin measurement. Um, and because I want to give you guys a good overview of how to construct the interior of your book, we're going to go ahead and stick with this 10-page number. So if you wanted to, you could increase it to 100, you could increase it to 5, you could also just have 1. You can add pages or delete them as needed as you go along. So we're going to go ahead and click create. And just an overview of our workspace here. So in the handout, I provide a breakdown of what everything is, where it lives, um, but just so we're all on the same page. Up here at the top, this is our menu. And even though there's a lot of controls around here, we still use our menu a lot. Um, Up here is going to be, this is our control panel right here. Um, it is important to note that this view changes, however, with our workspace switcher. So this button here that says Essentials Classic, if I click that drop down, this actually allows me to select any other um, preset workspace for InDesign. So if you wanted digital publishing, you could switch it. It changes up this panel right here, changes up your tool view here. If you just go to Essentials, you can see it takes away that control panel. Now, for me personally, I grew up using a lot of Microsoft Word, so I actually really enjoy having that control panel at the top. I don't like having to work either to the left or right. So I like to configure this to Essentials Classic, bring back that control panel, gives me all the options. Um, See, I've got that font up there, brings me to my happy place. Now over here on the right, you've got panels, and these are all fully customizable. Everything in InDesign is customizable. So if you don't like any of the preset workspaces, you can actually open panels by going to Window. Anything that is open and over in the panels is actually checkmarked. And even within these panels, there are sometimes specific um, groupings, and you can open just one of the group or all of them, and you can save that view that you create as a new workspace. Now, over here on the left, this is our tools. This is our toolbar. And again, I mentioned that we're really just going to focus on using 3 tools today. So the very top black arrow selection tool. And then below, a little farther down, we have the type tool, which is that T. And if you click and hold it, some of these tools have hidden options. So the type tool has another option, type on a path. We're not really going to worry about that today. And we have our frame tool. And again, there's other shape options if you click and hold down. Now, the reason why I'm clicking this rectangle frame tool and not the rectangle tool is because we're not going to focus on inserting any graphics today. This is going to be more of a placeholder option um, to demonstrate that. Typically, when you're doing any kind of formatting or layout, um, it's really beneficial to have a placeholder object that you can later place a graphic into. So those are the 3 tools we're going to use. All right, so we've talked about the workspace. Let's jump into parent pages. So the Pages panel is open, as you can see, and it's divided into 2 sections. So we have up here, we have the A parent and a preview panel, preview spread of that A parent. And below that, we have our 10 pages that we created in the project setup. Real quick, if we open the properties panel over here, if you decide that you need to make a change to your page setup, you can make that change here in properties. The other way you can make a change to your page, maybe you clicked OK too soon and generated pages and didn't have the correct margins or something. You can also go up to File, go over to uh, do, 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 do. Yeah, it's File. Uh, File and scroll down to Document Setup. You can also select Adjust Layout. Either option will give you essentially this Properties panel. It'll pop up, open into a new window though. But let's go back to Pages and talk parent pages. So you can determine which page you're on because it will be highlighted blue. So we are on that selected page. If we were to scroll down and click, oh, I'm still in the rectangle tool. Whoops. And click on this spread. You can see now that highlighted that blue. You can also jump around by just double clicking a page and it will take you to that page. So you can scroll up and down. You can use cursor to go left and right. There's one over here that's hidden by the panel to scroll up and down. But it is important to note that if you're just scrolling up and down and you're trying to get to your parent page, the parent page does not exist in your workspace. The parent page is its own layout, kind of, it's just those pages. But see how this says a parent? If you look at the rest of your pages, you see that A symbol in the upper corner. And that's because it's a style, it's a format that's applied to all of those pages. Now, by default, the A parent page is applied to all pages. You don't have to open InDesign and use this, but it makes your life a lot easier when it comes time to doing any kind of project, really. And the reason why that is because a parent page allows quick application of items to multiple pages all at once. And so you can apply things like your page numbers, your chapter headers. You can apply where a text box goes. You can also set it up to link text boxes a lot easier. So this will just save you time in the long run when you're working with your book file, your Word book file that you're going to import into InDesign. Real quick, that's the other thing that I want to mention is while you could type your book in InDesign as you go, I would actually recommend typing it into a word editing processor like a Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And once you're at a point where you're ready to format, that's when you use InDesign specifically for that formatting. Not that you couldn't, but it's just not how I would do it personally. Okay, so we're in our A parent page. We just have one right now. And you can see that it has these two spreads here. Now, what I'm going to recommend is that you actually have more than one parent page. And that's so that you can apply things very specifically. You can also create multiple formats that you apply directly to pages a little bit easier. So to do that, you're actually going to click this Create New Page button. And you can see here, because we had that A parent selected, when we click that plus button here, it says Create New Page, we create a new parent page. However, I don't think we need two spreads, so we can actually right click and click Delete Parent Page and just delete one side. So just real quick, and if you do something, you're like, oh, that's too many, you can also delete it. But again, just to note that if you have this page one selected and you go to +1, that's just going to add another page to your spread. Control Z to undo. So if you're looking to create a new parent page, make sure that you're selected up here in the parent page section. Then create a new one. We'll go ahead and create multiple just so you can see what happens if you have 4 or more. You can scroll and then have your own kind of preview here. Now that's a lot of page options, and we're going to delete a few pages for funsies. But this is going to make sense momentarily. So you can actually right click your A, B, C, D parent, and actually, if you go to parent options, you can rename it. So parent is the naming convention InDesign has for um, like the source material for things. Now, if you don't like that or you find it hard to distinguish pages from each other, you can also say that this is going to be your body text. or body of chapter format. And then you can go to B, open parent options for B parent, and name that your if I can type, chapter header. And you can do the same for any specific formatting need of your document, of your book. So let's start with the chapter because that is, in general, what everyone it gets very focused on when you're starting your book is making sure the layout works for your first chapter heading. It's the first page of your book. So, what does your chapter header need? It needs a page number. It needs a chapter number. It needs text box and even potentially a drop caps if you're doing fiction. So, what should we start with? Let's start with page number. To add a page number to your document, you're going to need the text tool. In general, you can put your number on the bottom of the page. You can also put it at the top. I've seen it done both ways, but it's again going to depend on the genre and industry of your book. For instance, fiction, usually at the bottom. And nonfiction, I've seen it both on the bottom and the top. It just depends. It's also a stylistic choice on your part. And again, if you're doing digital publication, um, you don't always need this. I'm going to show you how to do it just for funsies, but start with a text box right there. And we're going to go up here to type. And we're going to go to insert special character and markers and current page number. And you can see that it's going to auto insert a letter. And that's fine. We don't want to change that. That works. Now let's start adding in our chapter number. So we're going to stick with the type tool and we're going to draw another frame box. And let's just say I don't like where it is. I'm not going to focus on that right now. I'm going to go ahead and insert that chapter number. So we're actually going to go to type and we're going to go down to text variable and we're going to go to insert variable. And you can see there's a whole list of auto set insert variables here. And one of those is chapter number. So we will select that and you can see it populated at 1. We're not going to worry about that formatting right now either. And we know that our chapter will start with some body text. So we're going to go ahead and draw the text box for that text. Okay. So we've got our basic formatting. There's some things insert here. We don't have content, but it's set. Now, I've switched back to the black arrow because that's what allows me to move everything. If I was still in the type tool and I tried to move this, once you select a frame, you can't move it. That's not the purpose of that tool. So you want to make sure that you are switching back and forth between your correct tool, or if you hit the escape key, it should bring you back to the selection tool automatically. So I created this text frame to match my margins. Now this chapter, I can drag, and if a pink line pops up, that shows me the middle. If you drag it a little further down, you can actually find the center of the page pretty easily. That's one form of alignment in InDesign. Now, if you were to drag it and a green line pops up, that's actually showing that you're in alignment with another object, another selection on your InDesign page. So right now I've got green on the left-hand side and green through the center. So this frame is actually centered with the very top of that other frame. That's not really helpful because that's not where I want my chapter number to go. What I actually want is that kind of centered option right there. And I want to make sure that this isn't too close to the text up there. So what we're going to do now is actually play with some styles. Now the hard part is I don't have text in this text box, but that's also okay. We're going to pretend that I had a book to insert um, because I'm going to fill this with placeholder text. So that's type, and at the very bottom, fill with placeholder text. Okay. Um, so you can see this is B chapter header. If we just wanted to apply that to a page, we can see that appear on the very first page of our book. Okay. Now, the nice thing about parent pages is kind of like it applies it to a page, um, but if there's something you need static, like this chapter number, you want to make sure it doesn't move or something, it won't move. Now to edit it, you actually have to unlock it because it becomes locked on the rest of your page spread. And to do that, you Control-Shift-Click to unlock it. We're not going to worry about that right now, but if something is locked or you can't tell if something's locked, just look at the um, outside line of that frame. If it's dotted, it's locked on your parent page. And if it looks normal, just a regular blue line, it's probably not on your parent page or it's something that has already been unlocked. If you do unlock something, it will not change it on that parent page. Just important to realize that distinction. If you do want to make edits, which we do, go back to your parent page. So what we're going to do now is utilize this panel grouping for styles. So underneath this, you can see we've got character, paragraph, and object. Now, what's the difference between character and paragraph? Character styles are used to quickly apply formatting to text, but specifically a selected range of text. So if you just wanted one line to be italicized or something, that character style would apply only to that one line. Paragraph styles, on the other hand, applies to an entire paragraph or multiple paragraphs. So it's the best bulk style to be created. Now, the reason why I introduced parent pages first is so that you understand how to apply big formatting layout sets to multiple pages from the start. But your character and paragraph styles are going to be the stylistic portions of your formatting. It's your font styles, the size of your document, things like that. So when you're starting with a very new InDesign document, you don't have those created. Now, once you get one chapter formatted and you create everything beautifully, you have the option to actually load styles from another InDesign document. And it's a really great feature of InDesign that once you create one thing that you like, you don't have to go back and remember, oh, what font did I choose? What size did I choose? You can just go to this upper right-hand menu, these four lines here, and select Load All Text Styles. From there, you can select an InDesign file. I'm just going to select one real quick. I'm not actually going to import, but you can see all of these different styles that I've already got access to, already created. And if you select check all or uncheck all, maybe you created one or two that you were like, oh, I meant to delete those. I won't import those to the new file. You can customize what you have incoming into your file. Now, I'm not going to do that for us today, I want to show us how to actually create them. So I'm going to click cancel. So to create a new character style, we're going to start with this chapter number. Well, no. We're going to go ahead and start with nothing selected. We're going to go down to this plus sign and we're going to select create new style. You can see we went from none to character style 1. You can do that as many times and it will go in numeric order. If you're like, whoops, didn't mean to click that a few times, you can actually select 1, drag it down to that trash can to delete. You can also right click and delete style. Now, when you create a style, it doesn't have anything assigned to it, or it's going to be based on what's currently loaded into the document by default. To change that, you actually have to either double click and it opens this character style options menu, or again, right click and edit character style 1, pulls up that character style options, or again, that right hand menu, you can go to style options from that drop down. And if you want to rename it, it's a lot easier to name it in this options window. So if, for instance, you wanted to name it body text or figure text or anything like that, you could create that style name there. So body, we're going to just outline some basic character formats. So this has you assign the font family. I'm going to go ahead and select Myriad Pro. You can select here from font style. So if you wanted something italicized, regular, however you wanted it formatted, you could choose here. I'm going to stick to regular. I'm going to bump that size to 12. And you've got all of these other uh, specific text features. So kerning, leading, tracking, position, which all of these here is basically the space in between your individual characters, or in some cases, individual words, um, just to get the kind of appearance that you want. As it is right now, I wouldn't worry about messing with them too much. This says basic, but I would say that's actually a more advanced feature. There's some really great courses on LinkedIn that you can dive more into those features. Now, advanced character formats, that's just in case you're going to do any kind of scaling or conversion of the character to an object, or if you wanted to assign anything else. You can also change the character color here. So if you have any preloaded swatches or colors for your branding, you could do that. In general, for your book, I would stick to black. Open type features. If your font that you chose was an open type, they typically have a variable option. So variable fonts are able to be skewed a little bit more easily. They're not as locked as standard fonts. You can assign some underline features, strike through options, and also create tagging as a feature. But we're just going to focus on basic character formats. So body, okay. And if you wanted to see what something looked like, you could preview it, but we don't have any text selected for it to preview. So we're just going to go ahead and apply. And we're going to select some basic text and see that just that font there changed. Looks kind of weird, not very noticeable. So hopping over to paragraph styles. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to create new style. We're going to double click on paragraph style, go to body text, and we're going to base it on, oh, I was hoping, let's see here, basic character format. So it has a lot of the same features of character styles. I was hoping we could pull directly from that created character style, but that's okay. So we're just going to go ahead and import the same settings. So we're going to go to Myriad Pro, regular. We're going to leave that feature the same. For basic text, we don't have to actually worry about that too much. We're going to create a new style, double click, and we're actually going to call this our drop cap. So a drop cap is in a fiction book. When you open to that first chapter, you can see that the first letter or sometimes the first word is enlarged um, from the rest of the body text. So there's a really cool feature here and paragraph style options called drop caps and nested styles. And you can actually set how many lines deep you want a drop cap to go. You can also assign the character. So it looks like we may have auto-selected one because of our earlier selection. And if you don't like the font for whatever reason, so maybe I actually don't like Myriad Pro. Maybe I actually want just something basic to show y'all how this works, like Times New Roman. Okay, and go back to drop caps. 5 lines, 1 character. We'll click OK. And we'll go ahead and go here and change that font again to be Times New Roman. Okay. And when we select all, so Control A selects everything. And if you select a format, you can see, oh no, it's applied it to the first letter of every paragraph. So if you're going to apply a drop cap, I would not apply it to multiple paragraphs. So Control Z to undo. We're just going to select that very first line and apply a drop cap. And then we'll apply to the rest of the paragraphs that body text formatting. Now, if you import something that has italicized text or anything like that, the paragraph style will not overwrite that, or at least it shouldn't, but that is something important to check. Now let's look at this chapter header, right? Because it's a bit small. Um, so if we assign body text, it'll change the font, but it won't change the size. So we will actually want to go ahead and create a new style. We'll double click that, name it chapter number, and go to basic character format. And we're going to increase that size to, let's say 60. And let's see here, indents and spacing, alignment, center, and click OK. Doesn't look bad. Could be a little bigger. So we'll double click and go again to that basic character format. We'll go ahead and bump it to 72. Previews on. Bump it up to 90 and OK. All right. So we've got our number. It is recommended to just do one chapter number per project file. So I would recommend with your books to create multiple chapter files. So for this book class example, actually change the file name to chapter 1. Once you're done with chapter 1, create file book 2, chapter 2, chapter 3, and subsequent as you go. So we've got our chapter number, we've got our body text here. That's one parent page kind of figured out. Now, if we apply this, we've got this applied to the first page. So if we go to our first page, we can see we've got the page number 1 here. We've got a chapter number here, an applied drop cap. Looks pretty good. But the rest of our files still have nothing. So we're going to go back to this body of chapter page. And what we're going to do is apply some text boxes. And we're going to go ahead and add those to either side. And we're going to click our black arrow. We're going to do something really cool, which is click one of these bigger white boxes. So you can see there's 2 of them generally on frames. We're going to click that. We're going to scroll over and we're going to click the other page. And we're going to check our layers real quick because, see, it should have auto set to the previously created text frame. Looks like we just have the 2 layers. This is good. But now these frames actually have this little arrow connected. And so what we did is we actually connected these 2 text frames. This is really nice because when we add text to our document, it should auto flow to the next page. Um, Now, real quick, we're going to add our page numbers as well. So this is kind of repeating these elements. Add it to either corner. And just to make sure they're aligned, if you're like me and you're like, I don't know if they're aligned, there's an align panel and you can make sure that you're aligned to selection or aligned to key object. Whichever item you selected first will be bolded, and you can make sure that they are centered and in the same spot, which is a nice feature. What we're going to do is we're going to double click on that again. We're going to go back up here to type, insert special character, symbols, and no, sorry, markers, current page number. And on the other one, type, insert special character, marker, and current page number. So we're going to go back to pages. We're going to go to this next page here. So typically when you have your book, you may not have your body text loaded into this first file here, this first parent page here. So we're going to shift and control shift click onto that file there. And what I want us to do is go ahead and click on that white corner again. We're going to scroll here and click on that corner. So I wouldn't recommend doing this in that order. I'm going to Control Z. I'm going to undo load cursor, and I'll tell you why. Because we just overwrote the text box that we had on the parent page. So Control Shift click. And I accidentally added a new text box. Whoops. So these are both unlocked. I'm going to click that load cursor now, and I'm going to link those boxes. It was really quick, but you may have noticed that weird cursor pop up with that kind of linking there. I'm going to undo real quick so you can maybe see it again. If you hover, see how it has that link, that chain? We're linking directly onto that text frame. So when you have your text to add, so we're going to go ahead and real quick, Control Alt and delete. Typically, when you are adding your text, you're placing it. So you can place directly from your Word document, your Google Doc, whatever text file you have. File and place or Control D to add your content. A file manager will pop up, and you can actually add in text directly from your file. Now, once you do that, because I'm guessing it's going to be several pages, it should auto flow through your entire document, making your life a lot easier. And then because you applied those styles in your parent pages, it should be auto formatted. And if it's not, you can just make sure to unlock your windows and apply it on at least one, and it should auto flow the rest. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you, hopefully with, oh, nope, undo, clicked a little too quickly. Okay, nope, undo. Okay, type it, oh, it's showing the hidden characters. See, even I click on things randomly sometimes. So I'm going to select this field here, type, fill with placeholder text, and you can see even with my placeholder that it auto filled over everything. Now, the reason why it didn't do the rest is because I didn't update the parent page application to the rest. But unfortunately, we are at time. So the last thing I want to leave you with today for your book formatting needs is saving. So we're going to go to File and Save As up here at the top. Save as, to save your InDesign file for future editing. And if you go down a little further, you can also just click on your keyboard, Control E, export. So when you're saving your InDesign file, it's only good for viewing in InDesign. But if you want anyone else to view your document or check it for errors, a PDF is probably the best way to go. And if you're looking to do digital publishing, um, Adobe allows you to export in an EPUB format. And in general, I would recommend doing a reflowable EPUB file because that is what allows it to be very easy to flow from one format like a tablet to a phone size. And it just auto flows so you don't have the set issues with widows and orphans, which is where your pages are left with one word on the next page versus with the rest, and it just looks weird. Um, so that is how you save, that is how you export. Um, and you've gotten to learn a little bit about book files. So hopefully you do files like this a million times and get to create your successful book file. There is so much more with book creation that we can dive into. Um, Again, I know we're a little over time, but if anyone does have questions, I'm going to go ahead and throw that um, presentation back up on the screen. Feel free to send me an email with any questions. We have some great Plano Public Library resources that you can make use of for your book creation process. We have 3 digital creation spaces at Parr, Haggard, and Harrington, where if you don't have access to InDesign personally, you can book up to 2 hours per day to make use of InDesign for free with your library card. We also have a service called Book a Librarian, where you can book a 30-minute session with a staff member to work on a specific research question or project question. Um, those are subject to availability. Um, but I hope you got something out of today's class. And if you have any questions, I'll stay online for a minute or two more. Feel free to post that in the chat or just send me an email. But hopefully this kind of makes it a little bit easier for you to get started with your book publishing goal. Thank you all. All right, it's about 5 after, so if y'all don't have any questions, I just want to thank you again for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Um, all right.